Hello guys, welcome to the LatinLabel channel. My name is Enrique, and today I'm excited because we're starting a brand new series. This brand new series is how to teach your children Spanish. Spanish is my first language, and I have a 2.5-year-old and a 10-month-old, and I've started teaching them Spanish, and it's been going great. So today that's what I want to do, and this new series is going to be focused on helping you teach your kids Spanish. I want to thank you for joining our channel and joining our today's video. And first, let me start by saying that this is going to be a series. So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of steps that have helped me teach my children how to speak Spanish. I mean, you could read a whole bunch of books. You can do a whole bunch of things. I haven't read a whole bunch of books. I'm a native Spanish speaker, and I've had a theory that if you did a certain way, it would work. And so far, it has worked. So again, my oldest daughter is 2.5, and my youngest daughter is 10 months. The 10-month-old doesn't speak yet, but the 2.5 month, she's been like we've been we've been doing this theory, putting the theory on, practicing this theory that I have on her. So my wife, just to give you a little background, my wife is Caucasian. She's an English native speaker. She's conversant in Spanish, but she has like the green guy accent and all that. So mainly in our house, we have many different things that we do, and so I'm going to go by step, in many different videos. Today's video is going to be focused on step number one. Step number one is you as a parent spend the most time with your children, and if you want them to learn Spanish, hopefully you already know Spanish. Okay, so if that's the case, that's the best scenario. If you don't know Spanish, make sure that they are with somebody who's a native Spanish speaker. And by that, I mean somebody who is from Latin America. We live in the United States. Yes, you can have somebody who is from Spain. They will have the Spaniard accent. Nothing wrong with that. But if they're going to live here in the United States of America, then I would highly suggest they have the Latin American accent or the Latin American pronunciation, because that's who they're going to encounter most of the time, and that's going to be more beneficial. Okay, so the first thing on today's episode that I want to address is basically speak to them. So if this is for all of you who know Spanish, speak to them in Spanish 100%. I don't think you heard me. 100% of the time. No if, ands, or buts. 100% of the time. Non-stop. And when you speak to them in Spanish, they will not have a clue what you're saying. Especially if you're living in the United States of America or in a country where the first language is a different language. They will have no clue. And what's going to happen is you're going to get scared. You might get a little anxiety. You might get a little nervous. So, and that's normal. And that's, that's something that you is to be expected. But just make sure that whoever it is, if it's your spouse or yourself or the aunt or whoever it is, that's going to be in charge. There has to be one person in charge of speaking to your child, to your son, to your daughter, in that particular Spanish language 100% of the time. Not 50% of the time, not 98% of the time, 100% of the time. And I'm going to drill this into you because previously to having children, I had this thought that if you just keep at it and just drill it, it's going to become something that they're going to get used to it, because their brain is like a sponge, and because they're kids, they're absorbing every single piece of information that's coming at them from all sorts of places. So when you start giving them the language that you want to teach, especially in this case Spanish, 100% of the time speak to them. Now, are there going to be days that you get frustrated and you're gonna wanna say something in English? Yes, I mean, English is my second language. I speak it all the time now, and they just keep in mind this thing, that if you live in a country where Spanish is not the first language, they will receive that language 100% of the time, all the time, everywhere. So if you're giving 50% Spanish and they're receiving 100% of the other language, in this case English, then they're not going to really be submerged or immersed, I should say, in all this new language that you want to teach them. So the moment that you start, don't look back. Just keep going 100% of the time, 100% just teaching them Spanish. So what you want to start doing is, in my opinion, what I started doing was I started saying just normal conversation since from the moment that my wife was pregnant. I would put my face to the belly. I would rub the belly. I would speak to the baby through the belly in Spanish. I would sing to the baby in Spanish, and all those things. And there might be scientific studies. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to say what I did. And it worked. It has amazingly worked. And there's many more steps. This is just step number 1 that I'm sharing with you today, because I just want to make sure that in the process of you teaching your kids, you have the steps that you can look back and say, okay, well, this is what I did, or this is where I messed up. So that's why I want to give you specific steps, and you'll find out, and you'll know that, like I've mentioned, that there's going to be days that you just want to revert back to speaking in English, or maybe you don't know the specific word. Hey, find out that word. Don't, just tell your kid, hey, hold on. Or in Spanish, obviously, espérate or espéreme, and then you go and find out what the word is, and then you come back and you say, okay, this is the word. Or have the Spanish speaking person. So for example, if my wife was around and I was trying to look for a word, and just for whatever reason I can't find the word in Spanish, I'll go look up, and then I'll go look it up, and then when I find it, I come and I say to my wife, hey, can you tell her this is what the word means? So she'll say, so I'll say the word in Spanish. So I'll say whale in Spanish, and she'll say, that's the word for whale in Spanish. But I don't get to speak English, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that 100% of the time, or as much as you can, you are delivering the language that's intended for them to speak or for them to learn. So it's not going to be so much on them. It's going to be a lot on you to be disciplined and to be able to just say, you know what? The moment you start, you're going to 100% of the time just speak Spanish to them. And from my experience, I started doing that since she was pregnant. When she was born, the first words I said to her was her name. And then I told her, I believe I sang to her in Spanish. My dad made a Spanish song for her, so we sang it to her all the time. I gave her a kiss, so I would say kisses in Spanish, like besos, beso, besito, and I would give her a kiss. All the time, just Spanish. Nothing else. Obviously, there's some words in Spanish, especially in Latin America, that are okay, like the word okay, and things like that are basically an English word that has been incorporated into the Spanish language. It's not Spanish, but it's Spanish language, and people use it all the time in all these different countries. So there's going to be words like that. So that's not a problem. That's not an issue. But again, 100% of the time, what you're doing is you're just like drilling it into her head. I say her because it's my daughter. Are drilling it into your child, and you're just working on the pronunciation. So let me say something about pronunciation. If you're not a native Spanish speaker, work on your pronunciation, because the last thing that you want is them not to be able to be understood, or them not to be able to communicate because of a pronunciation issue. So as long as you know how it's pronounced, and you know, it's going to help you also be able to work on it. But if you're a native Spanish speaker and you don't have a problem with that, and you're just like on the fence, should I do this? Should I not do this? I would say just 100% of the time. So in our household, this is the rule. I'm the native Spanish speaker, so I speak to my daughter in Spanish 100% of the time. My wife is the native English speaker, so she speaks to my daughter in English 100% of the time. So she's getting 100% from English and 100% Spanish, and she's getting all this information. And you like you will have no idea. But that's the wonderful thing about how you know, we are creative beings, that we can learn all these things, and you'll see, you know, it's kind of a little nerve-wracking because you're like, are they gonna get confused? You know, at the beginning they might, but you will see that if you do and you take the steps that we're gonna go through this series, and do them correctly in the manner that has worked for me, then I can guarantee you're going to be a step closer to having a bilingual child than having just a child that knows words, understands words, but I can't really hold a conversation in that particular language. So, episode number 1. Thank you for watching. Guys, remember, 100% of the time, speak Spanish to them. Thank you for watching. Hey, subscribe, like, comment. Let me know if you've tried this. Let me know what your techniques are. If you have a different technique that has worked for you, or if you want to, you know, just share with other people. But just stay tuned for episode 2. Thank you for watching. God bless.